All right, this is chapters 3.2 and 3.3. We're learning about how to graph linear equations. Number one step is to know what a linear equation is. So in the form of a number an x plus a number and y equals a number, that is standard form. All right, and we must have a form or an example of standard form in order to graph a linear equation. There must be two variables in order to create a straight line when we're graphing. So A, B, and C are real numbers. So fractions, decimals, whole numbers, whatever it is. And then X and Y are what our axis is. When you are solving equations, number one thing is to make your life easier. So most of you know that when you're trying to solve, you're going to plug in any number for X or any number for Y. It is your choice. My advice is to start small. In the case of a fraction, you want to multiply by a number that is divisible by the denominator. So in this case, we have 3/4. We know that 4 can go into 4 and cancel out. So we're going to replace X with 4, and then we simplify. We have 3 plus 3, and we know Y is 6. So our very first point on our graph is going to be 4, 6 in quadrant 1, because I know that we're going to let X be 4, because that's what I chose. In order to plot something, you must find another point, because you must have 2 points in order to draw a line. So in this case, I'm going to pick 0. It's a small number, and anything times 0 cancels it out. So I don't even have to worry about it. I simplify, and I get y equals 3. So my second point is going to be 0 on the x-axis and 3 on the y-axis, and then I can draw my line. However, I did talk about having 3 points just to be safe. So on my third point, I have my equation, and I'm going to pick a -4 because I already picked 4 and it canceled out to 1. So I'm going to pick -4, and I'm just going to have a -3 left over. So it's -3 plus 3 is 0. So because I picked -4, my third point is -4, 0. I know that my math will be right if all 3 points are on my line. So I'm going to take those points and I'm going to plot them. So I have a -4, 0, a 0, 3, and a 4, 6, and I'm going to draw my line, and then I connect the dots. Make sure you put the arrow, because it's anything infinite on that line can be a point that you chose. Intercepts. Okay, intercepts are the same concept, but it's even easier. So an intercept is anything that crosses the y-axis or the x-axis. And you always have one y-intercept and one x-intercept, unless one of them is always 0. And I'll explain that in a minute. So in this example, I have 2, 0, and 0, 8. The x-intercept is 2, because it crosses on the x-axis on the number 2, and there are no y's. So that's exactly where I hit. On the y, you will always have a 0 first, and then it crosses the y-axis on a -8. So that's my y-intercept is 0, -8. Remember, you always want on the x, your y is going to be 0, and on your y-intercept, your x is always going to be 0. Now using it to graph. So when you're solving in 3.2, I told you to always pick a number, whatever you choose, but it's best to start small. When you're trying to find intercepts, you're always going to pick 0. So if you're trying to find the x-intercept, you're going to make y 0. If you're going to find the y-intercept, you're going to make x 0, and then solve. Here's an example. So I have my equation. I'm going to replace x with 0, and I'm going to solve for y. I do my math, I simplify it, I do exactly the same solving that we've got, and I have a -4/3 for my y. So I know that x is 0, and it's going to cross my y at the -4/3 point. Now I need my x, so I'm going to make y 0, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to simplify. The joy with zeros is it cancels everything out. So I get x equals 4. So I know I'm going to cross my x-intercept on the fourth dot, and I'm not going to move anywhere up the y. So 4, 0 is my ordered pair. Finally, let's just pick a third to make sure we got our math right. So I'm going to let y equal 1. I do the same thing. I plug in 1 with y. I simplify, I solve. I get x equals 7. So that means anywhere on my line, once I have my x and my y-intercept, 7, 1 should be on that line. And let's check it out. So now that I know, I have to plot them. So -4/3 in proper fraction, if I make it a proper fraction, you get 1 1/3. So you have a -1 1/3 on the y. You have a +4 on the x. And if you look, it does hit my 7, 1 on my graph. So I know that my solution is correct. My y-intercept is 0, -4/3. And my x-intercept is 4, 1. Those are my ordered pairs. All right, I hope this was helpful. Give me a message, send me an email if you need any help.